Will Harley Davidson Motor Company, will they get bought out? Are we going to see the return of the AMF years or a similar kind of thing? Well, let's get into it in this video, because I've been kind of doing a lot of research, and if you watch my channel for quite a few years now, I've been talking periodically about the business side of Harley Davidson and the trends, and you know, where they could go better, or where they could definitely do better, or where they're definitely going wrong, and also in a financial sense. About 3 or 4 years ago, possibly even longer now, I was talking about Harley Davidson as the company in terms of, well, could they go bust? Would there be changes in the structure of the company? Could they be bought out? And at the time, I was being ridiculed at the time. People were just very dismissive of what I was saying. But actually, all the things that I was saying back then, it's kind of come true in terms of uncertainty, in terms of a declining brand, in terms of declining sales. So everything I was saying about 4 or 5 years ago about Harley Davidson, well, actually, it's happened. So I'm not saying that I'm a prophet or anything. I'm not saying I'm the prophet of doom in this case. But what I am saying is there's a trend that's been happening, and it's kind of hard to ignore. Now, Harley Davidson, of course, now are coming up with a new CEO, and I'm going to talk a little bit about new CEO soon. But in terms of the company, could they be bought out? Are they ripe for being bought out? Well, lots of companies that go on the decline, and they have to restructure, and they start changing the way they distribute shares, for example, or they start buying back shares, or they try and free up cash. These are kind of indications that they need to restructure. They need to do something to re-energize the company, or to get things moving along. Now, this is common. I'm not saying that Harley Davidson are in trouble for what they've been doing in recent years. But actually, certainly in the last year, they've been doing quite a bit of this. And if you look at their investor relations page on the website, you'll get quite a bit of information here. But also, if you read, as I do, sort of financial press, and I also read an industry press in terms of the corporate side of Harley Davidson, then you kind of get more information on this. It's been good for Harley Davidson in some respects, but they've also had to artificially pump up the company a little bit. And there are various divisions within Harley Davidson that have propped up the motor company, and let's say the financial division as well, HFDS or whatever it's called. They've been artificially pumping up the company as well. But Harley Davidson make motorcycles. Yes, they sell t-shirts and merchandise and everything like that. But a lot of their business comes from outside of motorcycling. Lots of their business comes from finance. Lots of their business comes from brand identity. And one is inextricably linked to the other. One is directly linked to the other. One affects the other. Nobody wants to buy your product. There's a kind of changing trend. Younger people don't want to buy your product. Younger people who haven't got the kind of money to buy your product, then all of a sudden things start to happen. Because if nobody wants to buy it and nobody wants to finance your product, then that also affects the financing. Now, lots of manufacturers do this in terms of they'll try and offer their own financing. I reported last year, I think it was, Suzuki, for example, were offering great deals, and also countering what was going on in the economy of the world in terms of higher interest rates. They were giving low interest rates and interest-free loans or deals in some cases, or they were given really long warranties or protracted finance deals that actually make it quite cheap to buy a Suzuki, right? And that was their way of saying, we're going to give you an incentive to buy this motorcycle, and it's not going to cost you that much at all. Now, I'm not saying it was the cheapest deal on the market, but what I'm saying is it wasn't really earning Suzuki that much. It was actually just a way of bringing in people, bringing in customers to the brand. What Harley Davidson have done, well, they've offered a few deals, but really their focus is still earning lots of money for their financial division. They haven't really passed on an incentive to customers to come in and buy our products. Expensive products, granted, but buy our products. So it lends itself to, well, what are they going to do financially? And this, whenever you have problems within a company in terms of finances, or they start having to restructure, or they start having to think about cash flow and buying back shares just to get, just to bring it all in house, that kind of thing. If we talk about it in very simplistic terms, what this means is it's a red flag. It's an alert to any other investors, any other companies around the world, to say, actually, Harley Davidson, they're ripe here. They're ripe for the picking, as it were. Now, they've got big investors, and lots of people have talked about, in terms of BlackRock and Vanguard, who seem to have their fingers in so many pies. There's a big issue over here in the UK in terms of BlackRock and Vanguard, where apparently, allegedly, I don't know this for sure, that they're buying up lots of housing stock to rent, or leases of land and that kind of thing, which I don't believe should be allowed, but free markets, there you go. So there's a concern there. So if you're a Harley Davidson fan, having BlackRock and Vanguard having a big influence in terms of the financial situation of the company, then I think there's room for concern, because all of a sudden there's too much power in the hands of people who are not motorcycle people. They're just finance people. They're not motorcycle people. They're not really interested about the product. Now, if you consider certain financial players, they're not. If, let's say, they do a hostile takeover of a company, sometimes what they do, it's they scrap the company, as it were. They sell off certain parts that make the most money. They sell it off. So they strip it down to its bare bones, and then they sell it off for something else later on. But all they've done, they stripped off the assets. So they earn millions and millions and millions on the deal, but the company is left as a shell. And then it could either go out of business, or whatever, or it just never returns to what it was. So we could see a massive shift. Now, this is all supposition, of course. This is all assumption. But there are red flags here. This is what I'm trying to say. There are red flags for Harley Davidson in terms of what company could they become if there is a restructure, and what kind of company could they become if there is a buyout, if there is a massive influence by another company coming in and taking over, as was in the AMF years. Could we see a dramatic change in the kind of motorcycles that are produced, the quality of those motorcycles? Could we see something where actually you don't recognize the company anymore? Now, many people would say, well, actually, that's what we want. We want Harley Davidson to change. We want them to become something different. We don't want them to be this overpriced or really expensive brand that only attracts a certain number of people. And those numbers of people have been declining over the years, of course. So this is kind of what lends itself to this kind of discussion. We could see all of this. We could see a change of investment, a change in the fortunes of the company, especially if trends continue as they have been. And the way this hardwire project for the last 5 years under CEO, Jochen Zeitz, who has obviously just been taken over by Artie Stars, who starts in a couple of weeks officially. But Jochen Zeitz is staying on until January, February, I think, or March of next year, just for a transition period. And I'll discuss this more in another video, of course. But there is cause for concern if you're a Harley Davidson fan, but it's very interesting if you're just an observer, as I am, to look at a company like Harley Davidson, then look at other motorcycle manufacturers who've had varying fortunes, but also their strategies to see themselves through these kind of uncertain times of the last few years in terms of the economic times, how they've sort of, navigated those waters, whereas Harley Davidson have taken a different track in many ways, and it brings us to where we are now. Could we see a changing of Harley Davidson in terms of something similar to the AMF years? I don't think we'll go there, but I think what will happen is that if you get too many people in positions of power within Harley Davidson as a company, and what they're thinking about is just finances rather than product, rather than customer satisfaction, rather than truly believing in the identity of Harley Davidson, whatever that represents to you, then you've got a problem. You've got a massive problem in terms of identity, in terms of direction, in terms of what is really important to the company. So I think you could see something similar. You could see something where the product changes, where the quality changes, where it's not really representative of what it should be. And also then you've got a delivery issue in terms of dealerships. You've got the availability. You know, there could be so many issues down the line where all of a sudden it becomes a brand that either nobody wants at all because of poor product quality, or it becomes an availability, a supply issue that you can't even get the bikes. So it really depends how the structure of the company goes. I think it'd be very interesting over the next couple of years, especially when this new CEO delivers his performance as well. It depends what happens. It depends on the future prosperity of the company as well. It depends what sort of motorcycles they decide to bring out, what mistakes they continue to make as a brand, and also what successes they have as a brand. Very interesting for me. As an observer looking in, I would say there's a strong case here for Harley Davidson to get bought out by whomever. Now that's the problem. That's the big issue here. Who would be buying out Harley Davidson? What would they be bringing to the company? What would they do to the company? You know, would they strip away the chaff, that stuff that is just not needed? Would they kind of reset it on a path that actually could make it a force, you know, a strong force and a bigger force? And I'm not talking about Harley Davidson as compared to what it was before. What I'm talking about is making Harley Davidson a bigger, because they've got name, they've got brand, they just haven't got sales. But just like, you know, other brands around the world that are selling obviously a lot more motorcycles. So could they do that? Could they, you know, go from 190, 200,000 motorcycles sold a year to, let's say, 400,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 a year? Could they be that motorcycle manufacturer, let alone getting into the millions? Could they reverse the fortunes and draw a lot of young people in, or new riders in, and you know, service so many different types of rider? Well, they have to change the motorcycles they produce, of course. Okay, we talked about the $6,000 motorcycle, but it's what else they do, what else they bring. Could they do it? It really depends. So it depends if there's a takeover. It depends if there's increased investment, if they get the majority of shares, if they take over the company, as it were, what direction that takes the company. Is it going to be a positive direction or a negative direction? And then you kind of look at, well, is this, as I've already said, is this the AMF years all over again? It's unclear. That's the truth of it. It's unclear. But if you listen to, as I do, if you read and listen to a lot of industry financial experts, they're looking at this right now. This has been a bit of a topic in these circles for quite a while. Not only on the overall performance of Harley Davidson as a financial company, but also looking at the trend, and then also what does it attract elsewhere. So I've already mentioned BlackRock and Vanguard, but whom else could come into this? And what is their agenda? That's the key. What is the agenda? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Are they right for taking off? What would Harley Davidson become? Could they become? And, well, would you hope somebody else, a figurehead, would come in and take hold of Harley Davidson? You know, people talk about Elon Musk. People talk about one of the Davidsons coming in and trying to, you know, get it back on track. You know, who, you know, as Willie G did back in the AMF years, obviously taking it back. You know, that kind of thing. Who would it be? What does it look like? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, hey, just keep on watching the videos. I'll catch you again. Bye now.